Have you ever found yourself Googling how to fix your life at 11 p.m.? Bought another course hoping this one would finally be the answer? Or maybe you've asked 5 different people what they do when deep down you already knew? If you're an ADHD woman, there's a good chance you spent years looking outside of yourself for the right way to do things because that's what we are taught, to scan the room, to do what's expected, to get it right. But that constant outsourcing of answers, it's exhausting and it keeps us disconnected from our own wisdom, our creativity, clarity, and confidence. In this episode, we're unpacking how self doubt hides behind high achievement and perfectionism in ADHD women, and how to stop chasing external answers and start doing what actually works. You'll hear a story from my own life, one that both surprised me and cost me over $55,000. You'll leave with 2 grounded tools that you can start using today to reconnect with your inner voice. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Self-Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD-ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing, and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. If you spent most of your life trying to figure out the right way to do things, like by Googling, overthinking or analyzing, buying a gazillion online courses, sans coaching that you never do, or asking everyone else what they think first, you're not alone. We ADHD women are often experts at scanning the room, picking up on what's expected, and trying to get it right before we even know what we want. But that constant outsourcing for answers, it's draining and keeps us from really knowing who we are, which keeps us from accessing the creativity, clarity, and confidence that actually moves us forward. So today we're going to talk about how to stop chasing external answers and finally learn to trust your internal wisdom. Before we get into it, I want to share how I've noticed this in my own life recently, because it's relevant to how sneaky this self-doubt can be. As a woman who overfunctioned and achieved highly as a way to mask my ADHD, I didn't think I had any more insecurity or self-doubt. And sure, there were signs of it in my 20s. And in fact, I even have physical evidence of my insecurity and lack of self-trust, because my first supervisor ever when I was an actuarial analyst, Kathy, gave me a little wall hanging, or I have it on my doorknob in my house now. But basically it says, be brave, trust yourself. And she gave that to me when I was 22 years old. So this has been there for a long time. And to be honest, at 51, both as a coach and therapist myself, along with all of the years of therapy I've had, I really thought I was past the self-doubt because I like myself. I feel good about my life. And it was still there in sneaky ways, which I share because a lot of the women I work with, or the people, if you're listening now, you probably also achieved highly and may not believe that you have any self-doubt. That's a sneaky thing about limiting beliefs or limiting feelings, I guess, in this case, because they're often beneath our awareness. So today I want to help you shine a light on it. So if you're like, I don't doubt myself, I'm awesome, there may be a chance you do and just don't see it. So I didn't really see it until 5 months ago. And like I said, sure, in my 20s, there was some evidence, but at the same time, with all of my achievements and ability to do so well in my work, I really thought I was over it. That is until December. But before I get into what happened just 5 months ago, I want to take a short trip back to April of 2020, when I did my first online course ever to build an online course. I took a program from a woman and not being able to get that one to work, I took 2 more of hers, and each of them are a few $1,000s, right? Like, these big programs tend to be like $2,900 or whatever, and so I did that. There wasn't a lot of coaching. There were calls, I think, but not any one-to-one coaching, which is part of the problem I'll talk about in a moment, but I was like, "Oh, okay." And then one of the things that she and other creators will do is they're like, "Oh, if it's not working, you just need more stuff. You need to know more. And here's an option that I teach that will help you do that." And so then I was like, "Oh, okay." Being new to this space, it was 2020. We hadn't been around online courses all that much. I was like, "Okay, sure." So I dropped another 1,500 or something like that. I have no idea. And then another one. And then I even went to an intensive with her. And it was good info, but none of it worked. And I didn't get why, which now in May of 2025, 5 years later, I see it didn't work because she was teaching us what worked for her 2 years prior. So it was outdated information. So that was part of the problem there. In the meantime, I came across someone who was teaching messaging, and they were like, "Oh, if this isn't working for you, it's all about your messaging." So I took actually a very good course on messaging that I highly recommend because it helped me learn how to write copy and create content in a way that really encourages people to listen and get something out of it, right? So that it's done effectively. And I'm really grateful for that experience because I learned a lot. But then, because it still wasn't working, I ended up joining the mentorship for this person because it was like, "Oh, if it's not working, you need more help." So I joined the mentorship and it still wasn't working after that. And so then I joined another program. And these programs were all several $1,000s, right? So you can see how this is becoming a problem. Hopefully, I didn't notice it at the time. In hindsight, it's glaringly obvious. But I joined another program, and in the meantime, I'd bought, like, a couple, like, $300 programs or a $97 thing. I'm like, "Oh, it's only $100 because compared to $4,000, that is cheap." And I did another mentorship and another program, and then I saw this program that had, like, instruction manuals for all these different ways to do your business that you could try out for your audience and test what's best for you. And so I bought into that, but then when it wasn't working at a live event, it was like, "Oh, you need to go up to the next level of things and join their mentorship program." And I did. But that one, after all was said and done with the monthly payments and then all the transportation to the live things, was close to $20,000. And that ended in December. And at that point, things still weren't working. And sure, I have a lot of information. I know a lot about the online course industry, the online program industry, but I also am very clear on what didn't work for me. And now I'm more clear as to why. Right around November, as we were coming to a close for that year I had in that last mentorship, I started to get really pissed because all these course creators said, "Oh, you'll make your investment back so you don't even have to worry about it." And I fell for it. But what I didn't understand is that they were giving me the information. And even though they would say things like, "Well, I can't tell you what to do. You've got to do it your way. But if it was me, I would do this." And if I said that to you, what would you do? You would probably do what I say I would do, right? And there was only one person in this who suggested the thing we actually need to do, and it's the messaging guy. And I'm going to share that a little later. But what I want to share is that at the end of December, I was $55,000 in debt because I was no longer able to keep up with how expensive this cost, and nothing was working. I don't want to say nothing. I still have clients in my program who I enjoy working with, and I've got a couple of one-to-one coaching clients who I enjoy working with. But my business was still at a loss for the 5th year in a row. And not just a $200 loss, at least a couple $1,000 loss every year. And If you're listening to this, you're like, "Oh my God, that's terrible." Or maybe you're like, "Whoa, this is what's happened to me." Maybe not to the same scale, but maybe you have been seeking answers outside of yourself. And whether that's like, I remember in my 20s, I'd be in a conversation with someone, there'd be conflict, and then I have to like debrief with a million different people, or maybe like five, to get their opinion. And essentially, I was seeking that external validation and knowing what I should do and what I should say and how I should fix it because I didn't trust myself to know. And if this is you, you might be like, okay, I didn't do that exact thing, but I can see ways that you might see ways that you have this pattern of seeking external advice or answers or guidance, and very rarely looking within to see what resonates with you, to check in with your inner wisdom. And here's the thing, I want to let you know, if you do this, you're not alone. Many of us with ADHD learn to do this. As I said at the beginning, we are experts at scanning rooms and observing what's going on so that we do it the quote unquote right way, so that we avoid more criticism and correction and negative commentary. Because so much of our growing up experience was the world trying to make us be more neurotypical, AKA less ADHD, AKA less like yourself. And so if we get the message that who we are is in some way wrong, and then learn to mask and stay in this box of what everyone else is doing and expects, of course, our curiosity, our creativity, our clarity, and our own connection to what we want and what we know deeply is going to be lost, or at least very limited. And so if this is you, you're not alone. This happens to so many of us. In fact, if you're listening, you're probably like, uh-huh, totally. And I know it's not just me, because I have women I work with, both in my therapy practice and my coaching business, who've had very similar experiences. And like I said, it makes sense. It's valid that we got here. And it's essential that we name this is self-trust or self-doubt. This is a lack of self-trust. This is us not really, first of all, even anymore, knowing that we are missing an ability to be as curious and creative as we could be, but also not doing it. And so the first thing is to name it, because when we name something, we then know what we're dealing with and how to address it. So if you've been in this pattern in some way, maybe not the multi-courses, so you're thousands and thousands of dollars in debt, but if you've been doing this in some way, if you see this pattern of not trusting yourself, not even knowing to check in with your internal wisdom or knowing what your internal voice sounds like, you might be wondering what I do now. And we're going to get to that. I'm going to share that in the next part of this episode. But first, I want to say, if you really are resonating with what I'm saying and have maybe been listening to the podcast for a while, or you're finding what I share useful for you, I just want to let you know that there's an opportunity to do deeper work with me. And I've created a program that's different than all these courses I did, because it involves one-to-one coaching where we work with parts of you that are getting in the way of being able to do what you need to do. And sure, some of that one-to-one coaching can be more about skills and strategies for your ADHD, or if you're building a business or in a career and truly want help uncovering what's your best next step, I'm a great coach in that I ask questions to help you figure that out. And that doesn't mean I won't share, if you have training type questions, for sure I can share some of that psychoeducation about ADHD. But also as a coach, that work is about helping you tap in to what you know inside of yourself, but just can't access yet. And so if that interests you, I'll put a link in the show notes for how you can work with me in my program Ascend. There's actually two options. One is with 6 one-to-one sessions, one is with 12. And then there's for sure like course content and a small group and all that. But if that interests you, I just want to let you know that's there. So getting back to what you do now, and obviously some of this is going to be deeper work, but where can you start now? So, as you have been naming that, now you want to validate these feelings. And one piece of that validation is going to be identifying how you got here. So, how did we get here? Like I said, for many of us ADHD women, we grew up learning how to observe what is going on and kind of copying or mimicking what other people were doing so that we were quote unquote doing it right, so that we stayed out of trouble, so that others were happy and liked us because then they were less likely to criticize us. And for sure, our little girl selves had no idea that's what we were doing, was trying to stay out of conflict and being criticized. But the reality is, our younger parts were trying to protect us from the pain that might have happened had we just been our full ADHD self. Because the truth is, if you really, even today, kids with ADHD are still being taught to do things that make them less ADHD, less like themselves, and more neurotypical. That's what our society wants. And to some degree, there is benefit to learning how to function in the neurotypical world, because that's the world we live in. But if it's at the expense of our deep connection to who we are, it's often misguided and actually can do more damage than help. And so we got here because we were taught to do this. We learned early on that unless we wanted to be criticized, corrected, and punished for the way our brains work, we needed to do what other people were doing. We needed to follow the herd. And that works for a while because it keeps us out of trouble. But if you're in this stage of life where you're doing things bigger than you've ever done before, like maybe you're building a business, or maybe you're in a career and you're trying to pave the way to get promotions, following the herd no longer works because now you need to stand out. So that's why this becomes such a problem, and why it became such a problem for me as a business owner, as someone in the digital space. I do need to stand out, and I do need to shine my unique light out and share the unique ways that I work with people and can really help people move the needle on what's going on for them. And I want to just say, if you were in a particularly rigid system growing up, like I went to Catholic school from preschool through 12th grade, but maybe you had some other kind of rigid system, those systems often demand conformity. They discourage questions or questioning. Some might even say it's like the work of the devil, right? Like, I mean, seriously. And perhaps even noncompliance was punished, maybe something else. That adds another layer to quote unquote just growing up ADHD, which was hard enough in the times that we grew up in as it was. And so all of this masking that we learn to do, all of this looking for external guidance and what other people are doing so that we could fit in and comply, because that was what was required in our generation, all of this takes a toll. All of this disconnects you from your highest self, that inner wise woman who knows what to do, and thus dampens your curiosity, creativity, and deeper confidence. It was my disconnect in this way in the area of trying something new, right? I was doing an online course, which, to be fair, you do need some education when you're getting started, but there were some things at play that were convincing me I needed more from other people. And that led me to so easily blindly follow the advice of these others without even a thought to check in and see how this was for me. Not once did I say, oh, does this feel like a good idea? And I have that ability. As a therapist, I do it all the time. I'm very connected to myself, energy, and as a coach too. But in this new space, it was all too easy to seek advice and guidance from others without checking in with myself. And so if you're noticing this in yourself now and are anything like me and have done a lot of inner work, seeing this new layer can feel discouraging, disappointing, and even shameful, with parts of us feeling that shame because we thought we were farther along than we were. And for sure, it's valid that different parts of us might feel that way. And at the same time, the reality is that inner work comes in layers. We're never done. It's just that we're not starting from zero every time there's a new layer. So we can let parts of us know that, like, yeah, there's this other layer and it's an opportunity for additional growth so that we can do what we want to do now that we haven't been able to do yet. Because a lot of times we can feel shame of like, or maybe that's not so much shame as it is like discouragement or exhaustion of like, I thought I fixed this already. But we have so many layers, and it's not about fixing, but it's about continuing to heal and grow, which I don't know about you, but that's actually why I believe we're here. That's why I believe we're born, is to heal and grow our soul and learn through this lifetime. And so when I notice this, once I can sit with the parts of me who come up initially are like, oh my God, not another layer, and any other feelings about it, then I can start to shift to seeing it as an opportunity. And so I invite you to do the same. As you validate how you got here, validate the feelings that you are having about being in this place where you're noticing this new pattern that isn't working for you, where you're noticing this self-doubt that you didn't think you had. And maybe it's not self-doubt. Maybe you're like, Jen, I truly am not experiencing this right now. Great. But maybe it's something else. And so to embrace, like, all right, yeah, the reality is I'm here. The feelings about not wanting it are valid. And if you stay in those feelings, you're just going to stay stuck here longer. So if you can radically accept that, okay, here we are. I created this situation and now I'm going to learn from it. Then you can learn with it because now you have the energy and the wherewithal to do it. And to be clear, even this morning, as I was thinking about this episode, I was like, I really wish I could have learned this without having to have $55,000 worth of debt, which I'm paying down. It's not quite that much right now. But it would be nice if we didn't have to have this big boulder of awareness strike us. And so one way we can stop that is by learning to check in with ourselves more often so that we notice the little pebbles dropping, the smaller pain that shows up in our life, and address it then so it doesn't become this big giant boulder. In my case, all of this debt where now I'm like, well, shit, here we go. So just to keep in mind, there are ways to catch it before it gets, I don't want to say really bad, but before it gets extreme. And that's one piece of this, is as we start to connect with ourselves more through what I'm about to share, this won't happen as frequently because we'll catch the patterns sooner. So what do we do? Like, how do we connect in more with our confidence, our curiosity, our creativity? And I'll share two things. One is one that requires deeper work often, but you can do some on your own, which is to work with the different parts of you. I do this most days when I do my morning writing. I do 3 pages. Sometimes it's less than 3 pages. It depends on my energy level for the day. But when I do my morning writing, a lot of times I'm writing out what's coming up for me, just stream of consciousness. And when I do that, I will also notice the parts inside of it. Like, oh, okay, that's a part of me feeling that way. And then I'll notice a part of me be like, well, that's dumb. And I'll be like, oh, okay, so a part of me thinks that's dumb. And then even just working with the parts that way, you can create some awareness. Now, for sure, if you have more stuck patterns, there is deeper work to do there. And that's something I offer in my program that has all those one-on-ones so that you can actually move the needle and not just have this course only that you never really do. Secondly, and this is something you can start doing right now, is spend time in silence. And this is actually the thing that I said I'd get back to, that only one of the people recommended, and it was the messaging guru. He really is a star at messaging, but also He recommended sitting in the silence. Things weren't working as quickly as I wanted to, or maybe I wasn't as consistent as I needed to be. And that's when then it was easier for me to just jump to this easy solution of another program that promised it would tell me what to do. Because that's the thing. Sitting in the silence feels hard. Doing your journaling feels hard. Buying a shiny new course that's going to tell you what to do seems easy until you buy so many of them and you don't do them all. And now you have all this debt, right? But at any rate, we don't see that. But the reality is you can skip all of the mistakes I made by now allowing yourself to be with yourself, to sit in the silence. Set a timer for 5 minutes and let yourself sit and just notice. You don't have to do anything. This isn't about meditation. This is about allowing yourself to be with yourself and notice what comes up. Just watch your thoughts. And if you notice your thoughts are thinking about, I don't know, Glee. I'm watching Glee right now for the first time, so that's what's on my mind. But if you're thinking about Glee or something like that, just notice that. A lot of times when you sit in the silence, other things will come up. You might even set an intention for your silence. Like, as I sit here, I'm going to invite in ideas about my next podcast episode, which is actually what I did this morning. And then you write after it. Then you free write after it, just whatever came up, but then also what comes up as you free write. And a lot of times doing that over and over, that is how you start to connect with your inner wisdom. That is how you hear from your highest self, your inner wise woman, or what we in IFS call self energy. Because as you do that more and more, you will have more clarity on what to do. And that doesn't mean that you don't still have learning to do. Like, for sure, there is important information that we need. If we've never had an online business, we need that. But having that ability to connect in with your inner wisdom, to notice what it feels like in your body, will then help you see what resonates, what's a fit for you, and what to pass on or not even bother trying, because you will have more clarity about what's coming from within. And I just got to say, as I've started doing that, it's actually happened for me. I've been having a harder time getting out of bed actually since about a year ago at this time, which I think was because I was so tired of following what everyone else said and it wasn't working. So I was having a harder time getting out of bed. And that process of just laying there, not able to go back to sleep, but too tired to get up, my brain would think, and I keep a notepad by my desk with a pen, or by my desk, on my nightstand with a pen, and would just write down what came up. And that is where some of my most recent ideas that have done really well came from. Essentially, unintentional silence. And it's amazing when we do that, what comes to us. But I will say it's a practice. And if you are someone who has like a crap ton of trauma, I shouldn't even say it that way. If you've got complex trauma, sitting in the silence may not be safe yet. And so you may have some deeper work to do. You may have parts of you to work with to even be allowed to sit in the silence. And so you may need to do some of that work before you're able to actually then sit in the silence. And so I've already shared one way to work with me. I'd love it if you're not following this podcast yet, that you hit the follow or subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Just keep listening, because I often share ideas for you to then let simmer, let cook inside of you, to try out and experiment with and see if they work. Because if I've learned anything, if I know anything from my 25 years in the field of mental health, what I can tell you is that the people who are the most successful are the ones who not only do work between meeting with whoever their mental health professional is or coach is, but also who take the time to do it their own way, to take the time to figure out what that is and then do it. And so maybe as you're listening to this episode, what you can do is take some time to sit in the silence after listening and notice what comes up for you about your journey. Notice what resonates and what doesn't, and then let yourself free write and see what you notice. All right, y'all. It's been great having you here, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode. Take care.